for this week's Fire Trail Tech video, we're going to have a look at stoves from MSR. Start with having a look at these two stoves here, which are canister stoves. This is the MSR Pocket Rocket. The Pocket Rocket really started the small canister stove sort of revolution, maybe about 10 or 15 years ago. And this is the second version. This is called the Pocket Rocket 2. Canister stoves, they're nice and light, they're packed down really small, and they're also very affordable. So if I take this down, you can see how small it is. Folds it really tiny, that in the palm of my hand. So the Pocket Rocket 2 has basic protection from the wind. Screws onto the canister. There's no igniter on this, so in order to get this lit, I tend to use a fire steel. Fire steels work by just striking a piece of magnesium to get some flame. So to start the Pocket Rocket, open the tap. With that, you can use these small stove systems, which come with little pots. These are all integrated. This is a slightly different stove, which I'll talk about in a minute. But this would also work well with the first Pocket Rocket. You get a cup, a strainer lid, so you can, if you're cooking your pasta, you can drain the water out. You can actually drink from this, and it has a little lip here so that you don't burn your lip when you're drinking from the cup. Cup's got a bit of silicone around here, so you can pick it up and actually use it as a cup as well as your pan. Second stove I'm going to show you is the Pocket Rocket Deluxe. Pocket Rocket Deluxe has got a slightly different burner head. It's a bit bigger, but the most important thing it has in here is it has a pressure regulator. And what the pressure regulator does is it means that the stove burns at the same speed all the way through the gas canister. And because the pressure regulator is set to the same pressure as an empty can, it'll burn just as fast at the start of the can as it does at the end of the can. And this means that every single time when you're boiling water, it'll more or less be the same time. This one also has a self-igniter. Just to show you how easy this one is to get going, turn it on. Small canister stove. So while that's boiling, just a quick summary. The basic Pocket Rocket has no pressure regulation, so as the gas canister empties, the flame gets smaller and smaller, but it's light, it's cheap, it's affordable. The Pocket Rocket Deluxe adds in a self-igniter, and it also adds in pressure regulation, which means that it burns at the same speed consistently all the way through the gas can. Moving on to these two, these are MSR's system stoves. This one is called the Windburner, and this one is called the Reactor. The way to separate these two stoves is to think about the Windburner as being the sort of consumer model. It's user friendly, it has lots of things to make your life easy, it's a fully integrated system stove. The Reactor is the pro user version. It's designed for high altitude, extremely cold, hard users who need a completely reliable stove. It is without question the most efficient stove in the MSR range. First of all, I'm going to have a look at the Windburner, which for most people is the absolute ideal system stove. Like this little set that we had here, it also comes with a cup at the bottom. Everything packs up neatly inside the system stove. There's a little canister stand, which allows us to put our gas on here. We put the two legs on flat, lift that one up, and that supports our gas can. Next out is the burner unit. like the Pocket Rocket Deluxe, which is pressure regulated, this too has a pressure regulator. This means that you get consistent burn times, it means that it works in cold conditions, and it works better at altitude. What's different about this stove is it is a radiant burner. So instead of being a flame that's like almost like a blowtorch, this spreads its flame over here. Also, this system, once clipped together, is completely windproof, and that allows you to use this in conditions where it would be harder to get the water to boil with a canister stove because the wind is blowing the flame out of the way of the pan. So I'll just put this together now. Okay, that's as good to go. Add a little bit of water in here. Also, like this system stove, it allows you to hold on to the side casing. It has a handle, so it's easy to carry around, and it also clips to the stove so that you can lift the stove up and move the stove around. It's not a good idea to walk very far, you could lose the stove, but it's good for just slightly moving it out of the way at the entrance to a tent, or if you're going to eat and you're sat, you can move it to one side so that nobody burns themselves. With this one, like the first Pocket Rocket, we need to use a fire steel to start this. They're very quiet, there's no real visible flame on a wind burner, but you might be able to see there that the indicator wire is glowing orange, which should show you that the stove is on. Once we clip this in, the reason this stove is so efficient is because all of the heat, bar something like 3 or 4% of the energy, is going straight into the bottom of the pan. So it will boil water really quickly. This stove can also, it has a strainer in the lid, it has a spoon slot in here so that you can stir things or leave your spoon in. You can also buy a coffee press for this to turn this into a giant percolator. And you can see it almost immediately, that's boiling the water. There's steam coming out of that, and by comparison to the other stove you can see how quick that is. Okay, finally we'll have a look at the reactor. As you can see, this one again is a radiant burner, but it's much bigger than the Windburner. So if you look at the size of the Windburner by comparison, you can see the difference in the power of the burner. This works slightly differently. It also has an awesome and very expensive pressure regulator. These have been used on 8,000 meter peaks, and their performance is not really affected very much by altitude. That's almost unique in gas canister world, as in they are one of the few gas stoves that you can use in high altitude and extremely cold conditions. They're slightly harder to light than a Windburner, and again we have to use a fire steel to get these lit. When they get up to speed, the burner glows, which we'll be able to show you in a second. This doesn't clip together, you can't walk around with this stove. There's no nice touchy-feely side part on it to keep your hands from getting burnt. This is just a straight, raw, lightweight, alpine expedition stove. So in terms of who should choose which of these stoves, if you want a lightweight, cheap option that packs down really tiny, very reliable, very robust, then the Pocket Rocket 2 is probably for you. If you want something that adds in pressure regulation and the ease of piezo ignition, then the Pocket Rocket Deluxe is a really affordable stove that again packs down quite small. Not quite as tiny as this, but it's very close. If you want to move towards a system stove, which adds in a lot more energy efficiency and all sorts of little features, like for example the fact that you can carry this, you can hold it, you can put a spoon slot in, and it adds in the main element, which is windproofing, then the Windburner is for you. If you're a pro user where you're going to be doing extended trips where the main priority is gas efficiency and speed of boil, as you can see, that's taken no time at all to do basically half a litre of water. That is now boiling really vigorously. Then the reactor for you. All of the stoves, as I've indicated there, rise in cost. This being the cheapest and most affordable stove, and the reactor being the most expensive. Okay, so I've talked through the various different characteristics of each of the stoves, and what I thought would be interesting now is I'll light each of the stoves, and once they're lit I'll try to lift all the cans on as quickly as I can, and we'll see which one wins. I don't actually know which one's going to win. We'd like to assume that it's the most expensive one, but we don't know, so we're just going to give it a whirl. First off, Pocket Rocket Deluxe. Second one, Windburner. Next one, Reactor. All stoves are running, gas taps fully open. There's 250 mils of water in each one of the cans. They've each got their lids on. Ready to go, here we go. So the results that we've got here, these stoves are all pressure regulated, so even when it's cold, the speed that they burn at shouldn't really be affected that much by cold temperatures. What these two are adding in is wind protection. It's relatively still where we are here, but if there was a 10-mile-an-hour breeze, for example, we would expect these stoves here to do better than the Pocket Rocket. So both these stoves are really close. Okay, that's the reactors boiling. Windburner's boiling. And Pocket Rocket Deluxe is boiling, so pretty close. Just show those all boiling there, all together. That's 250 ml of water. That's plenty for a cup of coffee, cup of tea. Not a lot in it when the wind is still. There we go. Right, maybe we're gonna make ourselves a cup of tea now.